here, Chris from Platform9. I'm going to talk about operations and some of the bits that come up around day 2, right? So we've talked a little bit about our architecture. We've kicked off a migration. Hey, I'm running. What happens next? I don't think there's anyone that's here today that hasn't had to open a support ticket with a software vendor. And when Platform9 was founded, one of the core principles was like, what happens if we take that paradigm and just kind of turn it upside down? I like to call it the 2 a.m. problem, and we call you. My first job was at a bank. I actually ran the monitoring system, the help desk system, and critically, the automation platform. And you think end-of-day batch processing is pretty critical for institutional organizations. If that thing went down, every team would call us. And at 2 a.m., I think I had a Word document with about 150 pages. That was not within the Remedy help desk system. That was our knowledge base. With Platform9, that doesn't happen. We're watching our customers' environments 24 hours a day, 7 days a week. And when we see something that happens, we actually reach out to our customers, we call them. What does that look like? The data that's up here on these slides is actually the full year data from last year. As you can see, about 75% or 71% of our tickets were related to technical problems. The top half of this diagram is saying, well, where did they come from? Were there things that the user called us about? Hey, my node's not accepting new VMs, or there's a problem with my Kubernetes cluster? Or are they things that we proactively generated and potentially also self-healed with the user not even knowing that there was a problem there? That accounts for the vast majority of the load on our DevOps and our support organization, almost 65% of the tickets. And that's a pretty astounding thing to think about, because when we publish our SLA numbers for response times on Severity 1 and Severity 2 tickets, Severity 3 and Severity 4, that timer starts as soon as Zendesk gets that ticket, right? So we have to keep ourselves accountable. So how does all this hang together?
And Chris, that really only works for your non-self-hosted solution, right? Yeah.
Correct. And I'm gonna touch on that question that came up. What happens if I install this in my data center and I'm cutting that umbilical cord back to Platform9? That's the centerpiece of this diagram that's on the slide right now, right? That's my Platform9 management plane. Inside of that are components like Prometheus. That's where all of your data and telemetry goes into first before it comes to us. Now, that system has an ability called remote write, and it also has the ability to generate alerts and send them to a number of places like Slack, Teams, email, Zendesk. If you're running self-hosted or running our community edition that's available for free for you to use today, you can actually go in and configure that to integrate with your enterprise monitoring tools of choice. Just like you would have if you have VMware vCenter events, or if you're doing stuff with AIX back in the day, Hyper-V, System Sensor, Virtualization Manager, you name it, right? All these platforms have an eventing system that you can pull data off of. We took exactly the same strategy. So it's not like it's not captured and it's not there. We're just not sending it back to us.
So this operational plane you can have in the self-hosted environment. Right?
The operational plane only lives in our SaaS environment.
So if I have this in my self-hosted environment, because this is the, for example, use case, I need to configure all those points that you have: log aggregation, central monitoring, all of that by myself, or do I have any kind of framework for integrations from you guys?
Our services team will work with you to say, hey, this is what is important. And obviously, we have a runbook of stuff that we're always more than happy to share with our customers, right? If I look at a customer today that's running VMware, they're going to have an enterprise monitoring strategy. They're probably going to have a log aggregation system already in place. In fact, they're probably running on VMs that we're going to migrate, right? Personally, don't think that's a great strategy by looking at the box from within the box, but that's what the people have done. So what we would say is, take the telemetry that we're capturing in the management plane and send it back into your Datadog, or send it into your Splunk or your Elk stack, or maybe Grafana Labs, right?
But you have ready templates how to do it, that the customers don't need to necessarily design all of it by themselves, go through your documentation. It's like, if you have Datadog, do that. If you have, I don't know, Login Insight, do that. If you have wherever, do that. Or they just need to reinvent it by themselves.
If it's Datadog, right, we're OpenStack, the OpenStack API connection is going to work just fine, right? If someone's invested within an open source stack, we're going to share with them what we're running, right? Some of our stuff is made for multi-tenancy, so it's not a direct translation, but we can at least say, hey, here's the PromQL queries, here's a sample dashboard and things like that. If it's in Splunk, once again, because it's all based on open source, there's a lot of stuff out there in the community that will just be taken over. And anything that's missing, our services organization will be able to step in and help people get up and running quickly.
Why you didn't decide to do the operational plane and deliver it as a model?
Well, that's a good question.
Because this is, like, I have it, but I will not give you. Is there a decision that it's made already, or you plan to do that in the future to bring it on-prem as well?
If I could rewind history and put my product manager hat back on, I would happily answer that question. Seeing we have Rupak here, he is our CTO. He's much better positioned to answer that question for you. There's a lot of stuff that's living in there, and we do run like lots of customers, lots of multi-tenanted capabilities. So it's not exactly plug and play, but I'll let Rupak jump in there.
What we have observed with our customers is they do have the observability stack figured out. So like Chris mentioned, most of the stuff that we have done is really integration of these tools internally and really work with our workflows, to customize it to work with our workflows. Can we do it? Absolutely we can, but not right away. We'll probably do it in sometime in future. The very first thing that we are actually going to be looking at is to figure out if we can provide that as a service for customers who have everything else running on-prem. So that's the first thing that
I'm asking because, let's say that most of the enterprise-grade infrastructures that you are targeting, it's run on VCF, right? And in VCF, you have ARIA, wherever the name is package, which is containing all of it. And it just came with included in price, And some of the customers, I believe that they will use it because they paid for it already, or they will be forced to use it because they paid for it already.
So like vRealize operations,
yeah,
right?
exactly.
And you're getting into observability and APM. I spent over a decade of my career in that space. Companies need to focus and specialize, right? We can't compete with Datadog, right? And when I was the product leader for Foglight, and what is now Foglight Evolve, right? That had hundreds of developers working on it, right? Just to make Java work, just to make .NET work, SQL, Oracle, database, DB2, Postgres, RDS, Hyper-V, VMware, AIX, Kubernetes. I think at one point we had Mesos support in there. I mean, that's a huge number of things that people want to monitor. And we need to know where we invest. We invest in virtualization and Kubernetes and keeping that element running. We can't replace, and nor I think should anyone try to attempt to compete with enterprise monitoring vendors, right? They've been there doing it for decades.
That's true. Thank you.
But I'm going to play a devil's advocate on you because you showed the slide, so I'm going to just call it out. You are competing with enterprise software because at the beginning you showed moving from VMware by Broadcom into this space. And you're dealing with a culture that is used to that type of software, that type of solution. So maybe a roadmap item would be to take your prescribed operations plane and create some sort of easy to use stand up and train on how to use these things, because a lot of VMware guys, they don't know Grafana. Yeah. They don't know Elk Stack. They've never played around with some of those things. Some have, for sure. Yeah. Some definitely have. But if this was out there a couple of months back when there was a lot of naked vSphere of people out there that had vSphere, had vCenter, and that's it, that is your ideal customer. The problem now is a lot of those people are now using VCF, and they've been injected with all of the extra stuff and fluff that comes with it.
That's fair. Yeah.
And so now you've got kind of a new problem to kind of work with. So I think that might be kind of a good middle of the road way, because you mentioned your services guys, and I'm sure they have prescribed how do we get these particular things up and running on-prem. And VMware is one of the major solutions that's used in the government, and every one of them is hosted on-prem. So it's a big opportunity. I wouldn't say that it's a problem. I think it's an opportunity for you to address customers' need exactly where they are.
Yep, very well aware of that. Just providing some our own experiences on this front. What we have seen is a lot of customers, not everyone, they do have alternative stacks already figured out for observability. That's the reason it's perhaps the second priority, not the first priority for us.
Sure.
As Chris mentioned, we are solely trying to focus on the core of the problem, which is virtualization, containerization, and make sure that is really rock solid, and we give almost everything that people are used to now.
Thank you.
Thank you.
Yeah, it's unfortunately one of those topics I'm happy to talk about for hours, but we do not have hours. But great conversation, I think. And it's come up my entire 5.5 years at Platform9. This has been a question that's always come in, especially in the Kubernetes world, where everyone was like, hey, it's time to redo our open source monitoring stack onto Prometheus. It's always been relevant. So I guess just to wrap up on this proactive operations piece, if we were to say, hey, my environment here, my custom infrastructure, I'm sending telemetry back to this management plane, I'm using SaaS, therefore Platform9 is managing this with me. How does this work? This operations plane we've talked about has all those components running in there. When it detects a problem, it will escalate. That's either going to go to our DevOps team, our support team, or if needed, it'll actually escalate to one of our engineers, someone like a Tane or a Pooja who is going to be talking to some of our stuff later on. And that happens 24 hours a day, 7 days a week. And it's one of those people that will reach out and actually call our customers. Any more questions before we jump in? Next slides. All right. I'm going to wrap up this conversation on upgrades, and then we're actually going to share the results of our migration because we have taken enough time to get through that. So when we talk about day 2, big thing that comes up is upgrades. Right? How do I do what I need to do on a future version, and importantly, how do I get there? So our development strategy for Private Cloud Director will see a major release every year. We'll then have 3 minor releases and security patching as required. Now, when I led the product organization, we actually got to a point where we were doing monthly releases, and our enterprise customers came back to us and just said, that's too quick. That's too much. So when we looked at Private Cloud Director, we said, how do we meet our enterprise customers and users where they are? And that's with 1 major change a year and then 3 minor ones they're out moving forward. Now, when we do upgrades, it's a little bit different. And this is why I have a screenshot here that says schedule an upgrade. When we have a new release that's out, once again, we call our customers and we say, hey, there's a new version. When would you like to upgrade? And they tell us when. And then our support organization will schedule that upgrade for them. When it hits that change window, the upgrade will kick off. Everything happens in place without any disruptions to the user's workloads that are running. Along with that, we're going to patch and upgrade any of the critical OS packages that we've deployed. I've not got the definitive list here. It would probably fill up many, many slides. There's always questions, though, about what about shared packages and what about OS upgrades themselves, right? That kind of comes along the lines of, I'm building the environment, what's building the OS? Once again, you've mentioned Ironic. I think Ironic's a great solution for just managing heterogeneous hardware environments. We have a lot of experience with that. It's what we use for our edge customers to do remote orchestration in over 6,000 locations. Tooling from Dell, HP is also very useful in this space. What we do from an OS versioning perspective, right? Because we're not managing every package and we're not managing the OS. So we'll test and validate things like Ubuntu, RHEL, and Rocky. And we'll tell our customers, hey, you're now available to use the latest version of Rocky or RHEL or Ubuntu. And then we'll work with them to build out the automation to do OS, either patching. I prefer to use something like an Ironic, put the mode into maintenance mode, all the VMs will evacuate, and just re-image that entire server. and then automate bringing it back into the environment, just like we did when we built out the environment. So often we'll do this when we're doing the build out as well.
Let me ask a quick question on the scheduling of the upgrades. How long can you defer an upgrade?
Ooh, good question. How far will we let you get behind? We'll let you get behind 2 versions.
But major, minor, CVE fix to what?
2 minor.
2 minor versions. So essentially 8 months.
Yeah.
That's okay.
Yeah. It's important, right? People want security patches, so people are going to be doing these. We do want our customers to stay current, right? It's the best way to get bug fixes. If you are in SaaS, which means we are scheduling the upgrades for you, we also have the ability to patch things at any point in time, right? So that's how CVEs happen. If there is a UI change someone wants, they're like, I really wish it would work this way, not that way. We can actually just issue that almost any day of the week as well.
Right. It's the opposite, where a lot of people just say, I'm really happy with my environment the way it is. Don't touch it. Don't mess with it.
Yeah.
Right.
I have certifications in place.
Yeah. I've been audited. I have certification, whatever. I mean, I think, I don't know, maybe some of the people online can comment that there's a lot of VMware customers who are many years behind. And that's been an issue for VMware, trying to move them forward because of security holes that they face, et cetera, right?
I'll let Rupak jump in. We have a telecommunications customer, and we're very familiar with LTS support.
Yeah, we do have some long-term support plans as well, where we can support extended. We can have extended support, but that's a custom conversation with our customers. Yeah. We do want customers to be current, precisely because of the amount of CVs that are coming out right now. It's kind of crazy, and it's very difficult to keep up with.
Can we divide infrastructure on some bulks? Like I want to upgrade only the test cluster, and then if it's okay, anyone.
That's a good question. So we actually give everyone 2 environments. We call the canary environment and their production environment. Another thing I tried to get rid of when I was leading product was the canary environment. I was like, why should we run things twice? People should, trust our upgrades. Every enterprise customer was like, no, we like this thing called the canary environment. We like that we can just set it on fire and burn it to the ground, and we just get it rebuilt. Sometimes people do that, right? It's given to our customers without a license requirement. Obviously, if someone's building stuff on there, like actively using it, it needs to be licensed. And if it breaks, we don't really support it other than like, I'm doing a Platform9 upgrade, something went bump, let's figure it out in the canary environment before we go to the production environment.
So if I will schedule those upgrades, I can divide it in the bunch, like first this, then that, then this. Do you have to add some automation added, or is just like I'm setting up different schedules?
Would schedule them both completely separately. Okay. From our perspective, the canary environment and the production environment just looks like 2 customers. Just something in the domain, in the URL makes it look like, and some metadata in the back end that tells us who it's belonged to.
Okay, thank you.
Yeah, awesome. All right, I'm going to hand back to Tanay. We're going to wrap up this migration. All right.
Yeah. Hi, Tanay with Platform9. So I'll quickly show you the migration now that it's completed. So a UI reflects that it has successfully migrated those VMs. And if we go into our dashboard, which Pooja will go through in a bit, I'll quickly just show you the virtual machines that are present over here. So you can see that we have both of our Windows Server machines that are here running, and they have the same, because of the way we configure our networks, they have the same MAC addresses and IPs on these VMs. And if we go to our application, and let me just close this and reopen it. You can see our application is still running. And if we check our order that we just placed before the migration started, we will see that that order has still persisted, and your environment would still be running after you have your database in your VMware environment and your application running in your PCD environment. So you can see the last order that we placed was today morning, $100, and it's visible in your dashboard. So your application functionality is uninterrupted while the migration is going on, and you can use your environment, you can use your application split across different environments as long as your network and storage is supported.
You use this vjailbreak.
Yes.
It's open source software. It's your product.
It's open source. We have it on GitHub. Anyone can go download it, use it, deploy it in their environments, and try it out. And that's how we plan on letting it stay. Are there any other questions?
Well, and go ahead, John.
On the migration and disk side of the equation, are you changing formats in the?
Yes, we are. So we take the VMDK disk that's present in VMware, we copy that over, and then we convert it to a raw format, just because it's a little bit more efficient to run in within our environment.
And does vjailbreak specifically support VMware as the source and OpenStack as the destination, and nothing else in terms of
No, yeah, exactly. As of this moment, vjailbreak supports VMware as a source and OpenStack as a destination only.
Understood. Is there plans to add anything else in terms of sources or destinations in the future, or is that pretty much what you guys are going to stick with?
At the moment, we plan on making vjailbreak specifically for this use case of VMware customers who were trying to shift away from VMware. So at this moment, the only two options are these, but we are looking to add more depending upon customer requirements. Right. Are there any other questions?
Yeah, so you mentioned in the beginning of the demo that you wanted to leave the database in its existing location to just demonstrate you can run across environments. If I'm now happy that, yes, the migration has worked and the application is running in the new environment, I want to move the database now. Can I just do that?
Yeah, you can. There's absolutely no problem in that. Our recommendation, though, is that for VMs that are data heavy, as in they do a lot of writes to the disk, we recommend that you cold migrate it, just because the length of incremental updates that you would keep doing could extend for a much longer time. So our recommendation is that you shut it off and then migrate it, but we can definitely migrate it live. There's no problem in that as well.
Would I be able to test the live migration? Like, I don't know how long that's going to happen because I'm not quite sure how much the right quiescing is going to happen. Can I kind of do a dry run of that in the background that isn't actually going to cut over at the end, but it will show me essentially mirror all of the storage across and just get everything set up ready to go before I do the cutover, but don't actually do that final cutover until I say, yeah, I'm good with it.
Right. So that is the admin-initiated cutover option that we have, where the admin can specify after the copy has been done that they are satisfied with how it is, and then they proceed with the cutover. Cutover process, the first step of it is to turn off the source VM. So the admin can initiate when they would like that process to start.
Oh, great. Okay. Excellent.